So you might be looking at this and thinking, oh, that wave is not so big. It's only as big as a house. I would say that this particular wave is about 80 feet tall. So 80 feet is about the size of we have a water tower here. This is the Queen Elizabeth II, which hit a pair of 100-foot rogue waves in 1995. And in those waves, if you see the bridge windows up there, that means that those waves were about 100 feet tall. So a 100-foot wave, 10-story office building, angry 10-story office building. So a 100-foot wave is scary enough, but imagine something bigger along the lines of, say, 350 feet. So really what we have here is an air traffic control tower of water. And none of us have seen such a wave or want to. But in case you think that waves this big are just mythical and not real, I want to introduce you to one last character in this book. This is Latoya Bay, Alaska. It's just west on the coast from Sitka. It is my vote for the creepiest, spookiest place on Earth. And the reason why is because on July 9th, 1958, this place kicked up a 1,740-foot wave. 1,740-foot wave. It can eat the Empire State Building for lunch without any trouble. And how do you imagine a wave that big? But we don't actually have to. Some people don't have to imagine a wave that big because 6 people were in this wave. And 4 of them survived it, which is astonishing.
Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so the more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all-powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might ascribe to a creator. All-powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all-powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go. Okay? Not a problem. There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths, collectively. Because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence. But we don't, for exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it. So I remain unconvinced. But if you've got some good evidence, bring it, bring it, okay? And so I don't lead with that information because what I believe should be irrelevant to anyone. It's not about me. It's about the real world.
Guess what, biz? Coronavirus! Coronavirus! Shit is real! Shit is getting real! There are some new fears right now about the spreading coronavirus
that began in Wuhan, China.
The numbers keep ticking up.
The death toll now up to better than 360 people, including the first death outside of China. There are now more than 17,000 confirmed cases across the world of coronavirus.
The World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency Thursday.
There are fears now it could become a pandemic.
Meantime, the number of cases of coronavirus confirmed in America has risen this morning to 11.
The federal government on Friday declaring a public health emergency.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
And the government is tightening its travel restrictions.
No one who has been to China in the past 14 days will be allowed to enter the U.S. unless they are American citizens. Any U.S. citizen coming from China
who has been in Hubei province in the previous 14 days will be subject to up to 14 days of mandatory quarantine.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry came out today and they are furious with the U.S. They feel like these travel restrictions were unnecessary. They call them an overreaction. The reason they're so upset is because several other countries have now followed suit, and they are putting their own travel restrictions on China.
With this spokeswoman using some very harsh language, accusing the U.S. of going directly against the WHO advice not to impose travel or trade ban.
The U.S. government hasn't provided any substantial assistance to us, but it was the first to evacuate personnel from its consulate in Wuhan, the first to suggest partial withdrawal of its embassy staff, and the first to impose a travel ban on Chinese travelers. All it has done could only create and spread fear, which is a bad example.
The Chinese economy is pretty much shut down.
And now,
essentially, mainland China and its 1.4 billion people has become isolated from the rest of the world.
Hydroxychloroquine, there are signs that it works on this, some very strong signs.
This drug will have a very mild effect.
What do you have to lose?
You could lose your life. It's unproven.
But it doesn't kill people.
The drug in particular can cause a dangerous heart rhythm that can result in something that we indelicately call sudden cardiac death.
I don't know. It's looking like it's having some good results. I hope that would be a phenomenal thing.
It'd be great, but that's not what the data is telling us so far.
What do I know? I'm not a doctor. We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. Our numbers are lower than just about anybody. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all. People coming in from China, where this all started, it could have been stopped right where it came from, China. It came from China. It got out of control. If you think about Governor Cuomo, we're building him 4 hospitals. He's supposed to be buying his own ventilators. We're going to help.
People like Governor Inslee, he should be doing more. He shouldn't be relying on the federal government. Governor Inslee, that's the state of Washington.
Don't call the woman in Michigan. All she does is she has no idea what's going on, and all she does is say, oh, it's the federal government's fault. And we've taken such great care of Michigan. We inherited, this administration inherited a broken system. The original tests, the ones we inherited, Jim, as an example, they were broken, they were obsolete. And you remember we inherited a broken system. We inherited a broken system. WHO, that's the World Health Organization, they missed the call. World Health got it wrong. I mean, they got it very wrong. In many ways, they were wrong. I'm not happy with the World Health Organization. The reality is that the WHO failed to adequately obtain, vet, and share information in a timely and transparent fashion. It would have been so easy to be truthful. The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to 0. Now, the virus that we're talking about having to do, you know, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat, as the heat comes in. Typically, that will go away in April. I've spoken to President Xi. They're getting it more and more under control. So I think that's a problem that's going to go away. But when you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to 0, That's a pretty good job we've done. It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. You have to be calm. It'll go away. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. We need a little separation until such time as this goes away. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. It will go away. You know it is going away. And it will go away, and we're going to have a great victory. It's going to go away, hopefully at the end of the month, and if not, it hopefully will be soon after that.
But hasn't your thinking on this evolved?
It is going away. I didn't say it, Dave. I said it's going away, and it is going away.
You were saying things like, I think it's a problem that's going to go away within a
Which
couple
I'm
of
right
days.
About. It will go away. But I think what happens is it's going to go away. This is going to go away. It's going to go. It's going to leave. It's going to be gone. It's going to be eradicated. It might take longer. It might be in smaller sections. It won't be what we had. I don't take responsibility at all. The coronavirus. This is their new hoax. We have it totally under control. I think we've done a great job. I'd rate it a 10. We've been given rave reviews. I don't take responsibility at all.
These protesters gathered very peacefully. We await the President of the United States to make a statement from the Rose Garden.
I am your president of law and order, and an ally of all peaceful protesters.
All of a sudden, the police were ordered in.
As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers.
Where is the message of calm?
Gosh.
That's a photographer.
That's
going on now.
A member of the press.
Either the president don't understand the Constitution or you don't give a damn.
Everything he said will foment tension in this country.
This is not pleasant to even observe this.
I'm going to pay my respects to a very, very special place.
The President of the United States looking like a wannabe dictator.
The President just used a Bible and one of the churches of my diocese as a backdrop for a message antithetical to the teachings of Jesus. I just can't believe what my eyes have seen.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
America is waking up today to two crises.
In times of crisis, we look to our president to lead. But Donald Trump failed to listen to experts and made the coronavirus epidemic worse. He's made the economic crisis worse by refusing to prepare. And as Americans stand up for justice, Donald Trump divides and inflames. Think of the damage that's been done, and imagine what 4 more years might look like. Donald Trump is failing America. Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
Chaos in America right now.
We have been here before. Like we're in 1968.
This is 1968 all over again.
1968.
1968.
1968. That was a tough year for America. You see the parallel emerging here?
1968. This challenging and consequential year for America began with protests against the war in Vietnam. 5,000 women marching on Washington. In February, students protesting a whites-only bowling alley in South Carolina are gunned down by police. 3 students are killed. In March, anti-Soviet demonstrations in Czechoslovakia, while in the U.S., Democrats are split over the war in Vietnam. Bobby Kennedy mounts a primary challenge against President Lyndon Johnson.
The fight is just beginning, and I believe that I can win.
2 weeks later,
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
in April, Martin Luther King Jr. joins the Memphis sanitation workers' strike.
We've got some difficult days ahead. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
King is assassinated the next day by a white supremacist. Riots in more than 100 U.S. cities, 21,000 people arrested. Chicago's powerful Democratic mayor Richard Daley saying,
"Shoot to kill any arsonist."
Social unrest globally, student-led political protests in Paris. In June, Bobby Kennedy wins the California Democratic primary and is murdered that night. In August, the Republican National Convention nominates former Vice President Richard Nixon. 3 weeks later, peaceful protesters gathered for the Democratic National Convention. Mayor Daley orders Chicago police to clear them out. Protesters and journalists are tear-gassed and beaten. Vice President Hubert Humphrey wins his party's nomination. In November, Nixon narrowly wins the presidency.
We want to bridge the generation gap. We want to bridge the gap between the races. We want to bring America together.
The end of 1968 also saw a flu pandemic that would kill 100,000 people in the U.S. The parallels to today are obvious, and some in President Trump's inner circle embrace the comparison to Nixon. But Nixon was the challenger in 1968, promising to end the disorder. Trump is already in office, so claiming he'll restore law and order isn't the same convincing campaign message. And Nixon ran a center-right campaign in a three-way race against liberal Hubert Humphrey and far-right George Wallace. Trump won't have the same political lane in November. Despite the comparisons, 1968 was in fact much worse than 2020. Higher crime rates, shocking incidents of political violence, riots more deadly and destructive than today's. There's also much deeper popular support for today's protests, and no war in Vietnam. We are living in a distinctly different era today.
I study history, but I learned a lot by watching Richard Nixon.
By doing all of this testing, we make ourselves look bad. When you test, you find something is wrong.
Testing is a double-edged sword. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please. They get sick from all of the other things that happen. You know what I mean? I said, got to get it open. People need it. You know, people get sick from the other also. It's not just from the virus. We're testing so much. We're now up to 27.5 million tests. I thought it was 25 because it seemed like 25 million. 27, they just told me. 27.5 million tests. Now, when you have all those tests, you have more cases. So the news conference said, they have more cases. There's never been anything where they have so many names. I could give you 19 or 20 names for that, right? It's got all different names. Wuhan. Wuhan was catching on. Coronavirus, right? Kung flu. COVID. COVID-19. COVID. I say, what's the 19? COVID-19. Some people can't explain what the 19. Give me the COVID-19. I said, that's an odd name.
President Trump downplayed the coronavirus for months, costing thousands of lives and leaving millions out of work. Now Trump is trying to end protections for pre-existing conditions, leaving millions without health care. Trump is failing America. Trump has been downplaying the coronavirus since day one.
A lot of people think that goes away in April. It's going to go away, but could maybe go away.
Will this virus just disappear? That is just not going to happen.
It'll go away. It will go away. You know it is going away.
It's going away.
It will go away.
This is going to go away.
It'll go away.
It hasn't gone away. Over 120,000 are dead. Cases are skyrocketing again. And Trump still doesn't have a plan to get us out of this mess.
It goes away.
We need new leadership, not this. Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I have the right to do whatever I want as president. We're a small business. We can't even pay rent. This is not right.
There's just so much chaos and so much disruption.
He is the president of chaos and disruption.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10. I think we've done a great job. The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum.
I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum.
I like this stuff. I really get it.
We've done one hell of a job. Nobody's done the job that we've done. No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
Worldwide, the coronavirus death toll now tops 3,000, with nearly 90,000 cases. But even those numbers are nothing compared to what could happen in the months ahead. Today, CBS News' Jim Axelrod spoke with one of this country's top experts from Harvard on viruses, who has a startling prediction.
The number that I think is grabbing a lot of people is this estimate: 40 to 70% of the world's adult population could be infected.
Yes.
Accurate?
That is, it's a projection, so we will find out if it's accurate as things go on. It is a best estimate that I've been able to make based on a combination of the mathematical models that we use to track and predict epidemics.
So in terms of addressing the numbers that may get people panicked, what can you tell us?
Well, again, the 40 to 70% is a number a proportion of the population, adult population infected. And we know that some people who get this infection have no or almost no symptoms whatsoever. What we don't know is how many there are like that. So if, say, that's half the people, then the 1% or 2% that we're seeing in the symptomatic people is cut down by half. Whatever the number is, it's going to take a toll. If it really does spread as widely as that projection says, and that's what I think is likely to happen, then there are going to be millions of people dying, and I don't think there's any way to get around that. And so I think there's real reason for people to be concerned. I also think that we can turn that concern into actions that will make the situation better.
My message to the world leaders. Well, I think my message is for them to see the works, to see themselves, and to think, maybe to feel as well. What it means to to be vulnerable, to be a refugee, to be displaced, besieged, and as someone who is under unjust conditions. When you only talk about quantity of people, when you talk about numbers, and you totally ignore the fact that all these numbers are persons, are individual stories, are people. Every one of them is a story.
How about COVID-19 and its role with the globalists lately? And they seem to be seizing on that opportunity. It's like their dream come true in terms of control. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, this is jumping far forward. I know we're going to go back and fill in some of the pieces
Sure,
on it. But
you bet.
when I discovered, as I was doing research on this, because I'm skeptical of everything anymore. I don't believe anything anybody says.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I wake up in the morning and think, I better check what I believe because I'm not sure about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a little, I'm the perfect intelligence guy, right? I don't believe nothing.
Yeah, you don't even trust yourself. You got to double check yourself. Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, gosh.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I did a little bit of research and I found out that the original party that kind of blew the panic whistle on COVID-19 was a professor at Imperial College in London.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Neil Ferguson. He's a PhD, of course. And he was watching what was going on in China, and he built the first computer model.
Mm-hmm.
He's an epidemiologist.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think an epidemiologist is some kind of medical genius. They're not. They're mathematicians.
Mm-hmm.
They're anything except medical professionals. They're statistical modelers. And all of the climate alarmist studies that have come out of Great Britain, the University of East Anglia is one university where a lot of stuff came out of, and then Imperial College was the other one. Both colleges, or both universities, are thoroughly steeped in sustainable development. It says it all over their website.
Yeah.
Every department is colored by sustainable development, and they're all towing the line to sustainable development.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very open about it. There's nothing hidden there. Secondly, they're both universities that have been converted over the last 20 years. Instead of being institutes of learning or academic studies, they have become what are called global universities that measure their achievement in terms of social impact.
Mm-hmm.
They're not content just to give the goods to the students, you know, here's how physics works, here's how mathematics works.
Right.
They're measuring their significance by the impact they have on the social side of society throughout the world. This is Imperial College. So Imperial College had a history of writing climate alarmist studies using the same computer modeling, right? And all of a sudden, Neil Ferguson grabs a hold of the pandemic in China, throws it into a computer model, and then announces to the world, boom, 500,000 Brits are going to die, 1.2 million Americans are going to die. Boom, there it is. Just throw it out, you know, and everybody just looked at that and panicked.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Secondly, because he had set himself up over the years, and in fact, he tried to do this several times before, failed. But over the years, he'd become a policy advisor to governments on how they should handle these types of things. His doctrine never changed, but At the same time that he threw out his phony baloney computer model, he threw out the answer, the policies that he said that, you know, the quote unquote science says that you must do this in order to save yourselves. Otherwise,
exactly.
Bodies in the street, it's going to be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, close all the schools, close all the universities, number one. Social distancing, number two. Shut down business, number three.
Yep.
And there's a few more things. It's exactly what the governments of the world actually did. They believed him, and they did it. So here's a guy who's dealing with a medical situation, who basically has no medical training whatsoever. He's a statistician. Mm-hmm. He's a social activist. He's the same kind of guy or part of that group that has been promoting climate alarmism mm-hmm. for decades. And everybody bows down to him all of a sudden. Everybody bows down to him as if he's the new, you know, king of the hill.
Yeah.
Well, people all over America, the Brits completely flipped out over it, and the United States flipped out, and of course other countries did too. But in our country in particular, the mantra was picked up lock, stock, and barrel by the Anthony Fauci's of Washington, D.C.
Right. Yeah.
And the Dr. Birx's, we
mm-hmm.
call it Dr. Boo. It's like, boo, you know, scare you again.
Yeah.
Did you wash your hands this morning?
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, so this is not to downplay this virus.
Sure, of course.
Virus, it's nasty. Some are nastier than others. I've had some things in the past. I wish I never had them, and I don't want to get this one.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does, and I feel very bad for anybody that gets it, although most people now that have had it don't even know they had it.
Right.
And the few people that do get it and they have other problems already weighing on them, they mm-hmm. get into serious trouble, and a lot of them are dying.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the narrative was hijacked, it was hijacked by the very same people that are out to destroy capitalism and free enterprise.
Yeah.
This is the goal of the United Nations, and they have stated it plainly before, that they're going to change the existing economic model into sustainable development, which I mm-hmm. document very carefully in my book,
yes,
as being technocracy from the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Climate change was only the ramrod on the cannon, you know, to pack everything in
mm-hmm.
before the cannon was, you know, shot off.
Yeah.
Climate change is bogus in that regard, that it's being used to stampede the world into sustainable development. There's never another economic system. There's never another solution offered by any of these people. It's always sustainable development. The biggest question is, I have to say this, the biggest question is, okay, how did sustainable development come into the picture? I'm calling it technocracy. If you read mm-hmm. my latest book, especially, you understand why. But let me tell you how it got to where it got in the first place. In 1974, 1 year after the founding of the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations comes out with General Resolution 3201 called the establishment of the new international economic order. What less than actually 6 months after the commission was formed.
Wow.